In 2006, World Wrestling Entertainment presented their pay-per-view entitled Backlash. It featured WWE CEO Vince McMahon and his son Shane competing against born-again Christian Shawn Michaels and God. While the story was purely entertainment in the fantastical world of pro wrestling, there is another, much more serious world where people have also tried to lay the smackdown on God, a legal smackdown. I'm Think So Joe, this is Things You Might Not Know, and today I'll tell you how several people have tried to sue God and how some of them won, temporarily. To start off, the existence of a higher power, either a pantheon of gods or a single god, has been debated, argued, and fought over for millennia. And we won't be debating it here. We're focusing only on the legal challenges that God has faced here in the United States. In the United States of America, it is every citizen's and company's right to file a lawsuit against anyone they feel has wronged them. From broken windows to broken contracts, the American civil court system acts as the arena where anyone can ask for their case to be heard, explain how they have been wronged, and ask that the guilty party be made to pay. Civil law has even become a spectator sport, with shows like The People's Court, Judge Judy, Judge Mathis, etc. often being some of the highest-rated TV shows in their respective markets. To begin the story of people suing God, we first have to talk about someone trying to give God a gift. In 1966, Louis Gottlieb, bass player for the Limelighters and holding a PhD in musicology, created the Morningstar Ranch, a commune in Sonoma County, California that he hoped would be as a haven for musicians. 2 years later, he tried to deed the land to God, which started a legal dispute that would last for years. In the midst of that legal dispute, however, another dispute would begin. A lawyer named Russell T. Tanzi filed a $100,000 suit against God in Sonoma County on behalf of his secretary, Betty Penrose, after lightning destroyed her home. Since lightning strikes are considered acts of God, Tanzi decided to file suit, and since Gottlieb had signed a deed to land in Sonoma County over to God, making God a landowner there, that's where the suit was filed. In the various legal proceedings involved with both the deed and the lawsuit, Tanzi initially received a default judgment against God, as the court found that God failed to show up in court. Eventually, though, the deed to the ranch was determined to be invalid, as God would have no way to take possession and pay taxes, which also vacated the default of the lawsuit, as Sonoma County no longer had jurisdiction. This, of course, was not the last lawsuit filed. In 2009, Nebraska State Senator Ernie Chambers filed a lawsuit against God asking for damages, claiming that God was responsible for widespread death, destruction, and suffering of millions and millions of people. The court even granted Chambers a court date of August of that year so that Chambers could argue as to why his case should proceed, the argument that God had no fixed address and therefore could not be properly served. Chambers would not be so easily defeated, however, and appealed the dismissal, arguing that the court acknowledged that God exists, and therefore, since God is omniscient, God has proper notice of the lawsuit being filed. The state Supreme Court would ultimately dismiss the appeal, claiming that they only deal with real controversies and not abstract or hypothetical situations. While Chambers did propose an interesting case, it's likely that this lawsuit was filed more as a protest against proposed legislation that would limit frivolous lawsuits in Nebraska than to try to collect any actual damages. Of course, it's not just here in the United States that someone has tried to get a judgment against God. In 2007, Romanian convicted murderer Mircea Pavel filed suit against God for a betrayal of trust for failing to prevent him from falling to evil. The Romanian courts tossed the suit, saying they don't have jurisdiction over God and it would be impossible to serve him anyways. Not to miss out on the action, Satan has also been sued. Gerald Mayo was 22 years old in 1971 and an inmate at Western Penitentiary in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where he filed a lawsuit against Satan, claiming that Satan and his minions have caused misery and unwanted threats, and that he was responsible on Mayo's downfall. The lawsuit was dismissed on the grounds that Mayo had failed to provide the U.S. Marshals with adequate directions on how to serve Satan with the lawsuit. While none of the above lawsuits held much legal merit, regardless of any sincere beliefs the plaintiffs had in their cases, these lawsuits do have real consequences. After the Tanzi lawsuit, California restructured their process and requirements for serving a lawsuit to a defendant, while the Mayo case has actually become a staple of law schools, being taught as an example of how a case can be lost and dismissed due to being unable to properly serve the other party. For the time being, it seems the only way to get a victory over God is to get one in a professional wrestling ring. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching Things You Might Not Know. If you enjoyed today's video, please leave a like and a comment down below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that bell icon so you get notified every time I post a new video. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and you can see a playlist of Things You Might Not Know videos over there. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time!